All right. Next, let's see another Aaron question. Thank you. One more item I can use your help with. I just hired 3 remote employees. What tools can I use to easily track their time worked? Ideally, I want this to be easy to use and not more manual, difficult process for them or for us. Thank you. Also, what tools have you found to work well that will enable these remote employees to mail and ship documents remotely by sending PDFs or having a package them at their home? So, okay, cool. Well, second question is really easy. There's a few tools out there. One is called Mail to PDF, but one that I've used for a number of years called Postal Methods. It's great. Basically, you can send a document or a PDF to it, a digital one, and they will print it out, stick it in an envelope, and stamp it and mail it for you, physically mail it. This is really great if you're actually doing a large volume of mailing. And it's also really great if you barely ever mail, which is me. I probably mail something once a month, if that. So I never have a stamp. I never have envelopes. I use something like Postal Methods. And you can also use it. It has an API and an automation integration. I think it actually integrates directly with Zapier. So you can automate this process. You can automate the sending of mail and things. So whether you're using this for legal documents or not, you can also use this for like customer journey. So if you have somebody who's coming on as a new client, you can send them a postcard, send them a handwritten letter even. You wouldn't use Postal Methods for handwritten though. For that, you would use something like handwritten, which is with a Y instead of an I, or Felt app that allows you to send handwritten cards and letters the same way. So that would be the answer to that one. Then the previous one is how we're going to track their time. So it is more manual, but I'll give you 2 options. I've always been a fan of Toggle, T-O-G-G-L, right? So Toggle is very simple. Hit the button, start the timer, hit the button, stop the timer. Excuse me. Sorry. So that's going to come out at some point. There's 2 others that I really like. So if we want to make this as seamless as possible, I would use something like Time Doctor. So Time Doctor, I think it's timedoctor.com, is almost completely automatic. So it really just tracks your activity on the computer. And if you leave your computer and come back, like you can say what you were doing that time. But what's cool is it also will cross-reference with your calendar. So it can do things like if you have a meeting with a particular client in your calendar, it will associate that time with that client record, which is really nice. So Time Doctor would be the one to do that. The last one is a time tracker, but also a really interesting way of improving people's productivity. It's a device, a physical device called Timular, and it looks like a very large Dungeons and Dragons die. It's got, I think it has 8 sides to it. It's like a pyramid thing. And on each of those sides, you put a sticker or you can write what that category is. So this would not be for like a specific client or specific project, but like making videos, social media, writing, emails, whatever it is. And you physically turn the device so that the thing that you're doing right now is face up. And when you do that, it tracks the time. What's really nice about that is that that physical element of turning it makes it really hard to multitask, almost impossible to multitask actually, and creates a really important sort of neurological cementing of what you are doing at any given time. So it's not just sort of mindless activities. So that's the answer to your questions, Aaron. Okay, now we have a live question.
Oh, Ari. So I have a couple of questions from some of our members, but I also have a question from myself to you, because we spent 2 hours together, was it? I believe on Monday, and this was a really useful synchronous moment for us. So, I remember I asked you this question when we talked earlier, and I said, well, when is when is asynchronous not as useful as synchronous? And you said, well, podcasting. I said, well, okay, that's a very, very particular use case. You seem to be very, very asynchronous in general, but I do feel like there are moments, whether or not maybe it's just a solo entrepreneurship, that asynchronicity tends to be more and more useful. No, you don't agree. So tell me why.
Well, so first of all, I mean, I've introduced asynchronous communication with teams of hundreds actually at this point. And you don't want 100 people on a group message. You could do it on a broadcast. That would be okay, actually. But actually, and even beyond that, in general, we've seen from lots of research that the ideal team size is really no more than 5 or 6, maybe. So you can have little pods or cadres of people that are working on similar projects and similar things, but still communicating asynchronously. But asynchronous doesn't have to be video or voice, right? It can be Slack or email is an asynchronous communication tool, but people just don't use it that way. That's the thing, is most people are communicating in an asynchronous method as it is, but they completely distort the tool and don't see it as a tool that is being used asynchronously. Email is a great example because by its very nature, it's asynchronous. Sending postal mail is an asynchronous form of communication, right? We're not in the room live together. But the problem with email for a lot of people is that they have it open all the time, just ready to grab them whenever they want, and that's not how it's supposed to work. This becomes more and more relevant. So the solopreneur is not the ideal person for this because they can control their time in ways that a lot of other people can't. Asynchronous becomes more and more valuable and more relevant as organization size increases because there's more and more people to get in your way, right? There was just an article yesterday that I saw. What company was it? I'm blanking on which company it was, but it was some big company that basically has now essentially outlawed meetings. There are a number of tools that are really cool that will show you on a Google Calendar invite how much that meeting is going to cost the company based on the hourly rates of the people in the meeting. So you'll see, like, for example, a meeting with 6 people, and it says the meeting cost for a half-hour meeting with these people is $3,000, right? And that puts a really interesting marker on things, right? So let's say, let's take that argument for a moment. You're a growing business. There's meetings all over the place, and you're growing. So let's not say you're not like a multi-billion-dollar company yet. Whether or not we're going to talk about the efficiency of the meetings and how the meetings are run and all that kind of stuff, do you have $3,000 to burn for a half-hour meeting? Probably not, right? Not to mention the fact that you can see meetings as an occurrence when something goes wrong, right? Because a process is not working. Now, not all the time. I'm not blanketing that statement, but a lot of times it is. Anytime we need to have a meeting about this, it's because something went off the rails, because a process didn't work, or because somebody didn't do their job. It's not like, oh, we need to have a meeting. Nobody ever thinks it that way. And even the weekly huddles or the daily huddles that people do for companies, which I recommend, I think those should be done asynchronously as well. Because the very simple matter of the fact is, as you go from 1 to 2 people, it's really hard to make people's schedules match up. But when you go to 3 to 4 to 5 and 6, it becomes next to impossible. And when I say have their schedules meet up, I don't mean literally like they have a slot free. I mean, some people are morning people, some people are night people. We see this at our very own school system here in Princeton in the middle school. Part of the reason that they stagger the days of and nobody who doesn't live in Princeton will understand what I'm talking about necessarily, but every single day is a different schedule, and there's 5 and there's like a cycle of 4 or 5 now. And you can see that essentially it looks like an escalator or a set of stairs. So if you have math on Monday at 9 a.m., on Tuesday you might have it at 11, and on Wednesday you might have it at 12:30, and on Thursday you might have it at 2, and so on and so forth. And basically the idea, which I completely agree with, is that you're going to have kids who don't do math real well at 9 in the morning. But fortunately for them, the ones that do it really well at 2:30, they get to have that math class on Thursday. So if you're looking for optimal outcomes and results in terms of quality and speed, I think it's very, very hard to make an argument for anything other than asynchronous. And even for podcasting, I've done asynchronous podcasting, and it's a bit of a toss-up. I would still say that podcasting should be done synchronously because it's important to be able to read people and react in the moment. But at the same time, it becomes a performance. It becomes performative almost at that point. So I may be overly efficiency or, over-indexing on efficiency here. But if what we're really trying to get to is the best outcome and the most efficient outcome, most effective, most quickly, you can't beat asynchronous.
I would, so Nicholas, Nico asks, what about brainstorming? I would say that the idea generation process, the collaboration process, can be done asynchronously. We've done it, but if you've got 20 different threads that you want to follow, right? You've got to do this. Do you really want to have me drop 20 separate boxes, on you? You're like, I got 15 minutes of Chris this afternoon, and sometimes it's just helpful to be able to go through those things, check, like an agenda. And maybe there's a process of creating an agenda where I can just use Voxer to basically say, okay, well, these are the 10 things I got to make sure that we cover, and get out of the way. So what about brainstorming, idea generation, and just sort of general collaboration?
Yeah. So I could go either way on that. I'm definitely not going to say that a brainstorming session synchronously is not a good idea. I have had many really awesome whiteboarding sessions with people, no question. However, I can also consequently make the argument, think about a chess game that is, and some people who are younger than you and definitely younger than me will not necessarily get this imagery, but that there are a lot of people, hobbyists, who used to play chess via ham radio with people around the world, right?
I did not know that. No.
Seriously? That was like that was a very, very big use of ham radio in, I'd say, the 60s, 50s even. You could play because it's unlimited.
You go back further than I do, buddy.
All right. Well, okay. The point will still work. You can play chess asynchronously. Okay, let's put it that way. And there are very famous matches that have happened that way. But there is nothing like you can play a match. You could literally play a match of chess using postal mail, right? By saying like the move is knight to g4 or whatever, right? And then the other person responds with their move. It obviously could take a lot longer. But they get unlimited amounts of time to think of the perfect move and run through every possible scenario in their head. And they can even move the pieces around and make thoughts about it before they respond and say, this is the right move. As a coach, there have been, on a daily basis, I get messages from clients where my initial response is, are you effing kidding me? You sound like a total effing moron. What the F is wrong with you? That's what that is not half the time, but maybe 20% of the time what I want to respond to people right away. And through the magic of asynchronous communication, because I'm not in person, I don't have to be like, yeah. No, instead I can go like, no, that's not really the right thing to say to them. Sometimes it is, by the way. Sometimes that is what I end up saying to people, and I go through multiple iterations. But a lot of times it's like, no, let me think about this, digest this. I've thought about 6 different ways that I can say this, and this is the thing. This is the silver bullet. Brainstorming can be the same thing, because there's a double-edged sword in my experience to brainstorming, because you can get people into a room and groupthink can take everybody in a direction that makes no sense, right? And we've seen this, by the way, with design thinking and like IDEO. IDEO, if I remember this, the way what I've seen, like they have a couple formats where like they'll come together for like a very short amount of time, and then everybody kind of goes off and does their own thing, and then they come back together again, right? So if you give people a problem to go solve on their own with the intention of saying, we're going to come back together and share what we've each found, and then go off on it, that's sort of combining the two, a bit of asynchronous synchronous. But if you say like, we're going to spend 3 hours and we got a whiteboard and a pizza, we're going to figure out a solution. Yeah, you'll definitely come up with a solution. And yes, it may be better than what was there before, but I think the argument can be made that it won't quite be as good, because somebody is going to be like, I've got a great idea. And everyone else is going to be like, well, hopefully they're not just like, yeah, that's great. Then they actually provide some critique. But inevitably, you're going to have people who are like, I'm tired. Like, yeah, that makes total sense. That's a great idea. It's just like being in a jury, right? How many people make a decision in a jury because they want to go home? There you go.
Sorry, I have another question, but the junior people.
Okay. Yep.